All right, welcome to the Casey Catcher. We've got Julian Bradley, a Coach Casey Club alumni, but also a good downwind buddy of Marcus Targer over in WA. And the speeds that Marcus has been telling me that you've been doing, and he's been chasing you a lot. I'm such a proud coach, basically, and even the story about you paddling up prone on your sup at King of the Cut. It was like, oh, I got to get him on. And so thanks for coming on, mate. And I'm very proud to have you here.
Oh, mate, look, thanks so much for having me. I mean, if I rewind back a year to when I was sort of learning, I was so hungry for content and information, and I was scouring the internet for videos of people paddling up to try and figure out how the hell to do it. So yeah, look, all your content and podcasts and stuff's helped me heaps. So I feel like I'm kind of underqualified to be here talking to you, but if I can somehow say something that might help someone else, it'd be epic.
No, you're well and truly qualified. Not one. I go back to the story that Marcus said in that last podcast. You said you paddled up on prone on your sup, but not only that. What really impressed me was you're on the lift 120, and it was windy, but it wasn't. I don't think it was that windy at King of the Cut. So that. To me, that's you're more than qualified. There's so many people that have talked about doing exactly that. Matt Costa, he's talking about, paddling he's just got a sup that he wants to prone into bumps using his 120, and he hasn't done it yet. And I guess you got put in a situation where you didn't have a choice. And
yeah, that's it. Yeah, I don't know if I'd do it for fun, but it's possible.
Yeah. Well, let's start with that story, I think, because that's, I guess, to me, that's what I want to know about to start with, and we've got a few other things that we can go through later as well.
Yeah. Look, where to start? I guess maybe if I'd rewind back to before King of the Cut, I'd never been in a race before. I was pretty excited about it, and I sort of had no idea a month or so before about how to go quick. It's not something I'd ever kind of focused on or tried to get better at. Mm-hmm. So I did a ton of runs with Marcus and kind of following him and going next to him and trying to figure out the decisions he was making and why, and slowly kind of started going a bit quicker. So going into the race, I knew that if I was going to have any chance of having a bit of a battle with him, I knew that I had to get up probably within 30 seconds or max a minute. Because the guy's a freak. I know you've fought with him heaps. You can paddle up at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
And being on the lift 120, which is a smaller front wing, it can be hard to paddle up. So anyway, I knew I had to get up super quick. So I as soon as we started, I just went all out on basically the first thing that hit me, which was a huge mistake. And then I was kind of half got going, and then just when you're sort of half up and you're tired, but it's well, I either just keep going now or then I'll be ruined for the next one. So anyway, I just kept on going and going and going until I was absolutely cooked. And I was probably winning the race at about the 20-second mark when I'd half paddled up, and I was in front for a second. But anyway, so I was totally I didn't get up, and I was totally ruined, and I was my arms were jelly. I just pushed it way too hard. So it took me probably about I don't know, because my watch didn't start at the start of the race. So it probably took me maybe 4 minutes to get up, which is doesn't sound like that long, but it's I knew by the time I got going that the whole thing was over.
It's almost, that's pretty much 2 kilometers or close to 2Ks behind. Yeah,
exactly. And when the difference between I guess probably pulling away from someone in a downwind race, it's probably doing 5 seconds per K difference from them. So 2 minutes to paddle up, there's that's the whole race. So anyway, so I got going, and I kind of settled into a bit of a rhythm of just going. I was all right, we'll just have some fun and chill out. And it was really hard to push through push through bumps because it was
Yeah.
so organized.
Yeah, that first half of the cut is like, I guess we spoke about, it's like, it's a groomer, it's so clean.
Oh,
And
man.
it's like to get up and over, it's like the troughs are so big and spread apart, you just get stuck behind that peak and you gotta enjoy it, surf it.
Exactly. You just got to surf. Like there's just no other option. But anyway, so then as it kind of, I don't know, maybe at like the 5K mark, it starts to get a little bit less organized, and you can start like going through more bumps. Anyway, I just started to push it too hard. And I don't normally use my paddle, like hardly ever, because I've hit it on the front wing so many times and cracked paddles and stuff. So I normally just don't use it, but I sort of was in this mindset of like, go quick, go quick, go quick. And ended up smashing my paddle on my front wing and just broke the blade like almost clean off, and stood back up and did like a half stroke, and it just fully folded over. Yeah.
So you're like 5-6 Ks into a 24K race and your paddle's broken, basically.
Yeah, well, no, I reckon at this point, I don't know because my watch didn't actually start, but I reckon I'd just gone past I think it's Port Kennedy, like at the halfway point.
Yeah.
And then so you end up quite far out at sea, like I don't know how far, but a couple of Ks, maybe like 5 Ks out. So I really didn't want to have to paddle to shore and like set my beacon off and then get collected and stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, right, well, like now's the time. Like we just have to give a go at paddling up prone. So I shoved my the blade of my paddle in the back of my life jacket, and the paddle down the back of my life jacket, so it's like sticking up in the air like a beacon. And then I had to go on my knees for, I don't know, a couple of minutes, and it was super tiring. Like my legs were really hurting from kneeling and stuff, and I just couldn't quite get that much power. And also I never paddle anything on my knees, so I just laid down and kind of waited for one. And I don't know how long it took, like maybe 5 or 10 minutes to get going. And then I eventually got one, and it was so different to paddling up with a paddle, because you need a bump that keeps on going down.
So you basically need a much better bump. Yeah,
for sure. You just need like the perfect bump, because as you stand up, you obviously lose propulsion. So you need a big trough in front of you, so you can keep on dropping down and then peel off before you before you get to the bottom of it. But anyway, I got going on one. It was sort of like a miracle. I was like, oh my God, I'm going again. I'm going to make it. Like, this is awesome. And I had this like paddle shoved down my back, and I was going past all these, I also had no idea where I was going out there. I'd never done the run before. So I was kind of just following surf, like, looking for the next surf ski and the next one and the next one. I was going past these surf skis and hooting them, and they were hooting me back. Because I think they'd realized, like, look at this fool with a paddle in the air, like broken paddle. And anyway, I got too excited, and I saw my mate, Donnie, in front of me, who's a bit of a freak on the foil, does the lie down. That's the special move. But anyway, I saw him, and I felt like I was really close to the finish at this point. So I don't know how far I was in, like maybe 15 Ks in, or maybe 20, I don't know. And so I saw him, and I was like, oh man, if I can just catch him, like we can foil together a bit. And, like I just was sort of got a little bit, I got in my head, like I've got to make it to him. So I slowly started catching him, and I just pushed it too hard and then came off.
Was that another up and over, or was it just a weird moment?
No, I think I was just pushing it too hard. I just wasn't playing my own game, and I think I was riding really high, like trying to get through the back of one.
Yeah.
And I just breached like as I went over the top of it.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh well, I've done it once. It's not that hard. I'll just get up again, and then I probably stood up, like, and I paddled at this point, I don't know, like an hour to get to the end, and I probably had like, I don't know, at least another half dozen opportunities to get going, and probably like 4 where I stood up and then like started to pump, but then would run into something, like it wasn't a good enough bump, and then a couple where I stood up and I was just so tired by this point that I'd stand up and just fall off because I was just buggered. But yeah, it was really really interesting experience, and like it's definitely possible to do it. The problem is though, it takes you so much longer to get up, and you need such a better bump that like I don't know if I'd. I mean, it's a cool thing to do, I guess. I didn't have hand paddles or anything, but it for sure takes, will take much longer to get up than with a paddle. So
yeah, I think your feeling is kind of what I felt too. Like if you already know how to sup, it's like feels like you're regressing to do it prone, and like totally. You're probably going to be using a bigger foil. You got these hand paddles, which then why not use a paddle?
Yeah, totally. And I'm sure if you had a bigger foil like I have a Lift 170, if I was using that, I probably would have got up, again, but that's not the foil you want to ride. So, if you use a paddle, you can use a small foil and get up quicker. So yeah, I don't know, to me, that's kind of that's the better option.
For sure. Yeah, cool. So, but you like, I don't know, that's kind of like a bucket list item for me anyway. Like I've never, been put in a situation like you were, where I had to
just make it happen.
Make it happen. So well done, mate. That's so sick. So let's talk about equipment that you were using. But yeah, you were going to say.
I was just going to say, like, and when I was riding like without a pad, because as I was saying, I'm not from a SUP background. I don't surf. I don't like use the paddle to turn or anything. I just hold it in my hand. So when I was riding without a paddle, I was like, holy moly, this is the future. This is so sick. I've got my hands are free. Like, it was really cool. And then after that, I tried the Dave Kalama strap a few times and tried like putting clips on my board, which we need to explore a bit more to like, maybe clip your paddle into your board so you've got free hands. And I think there's something there, but yeah. Anyway, equipment.
Yeah, equipment. So obviously using the Lift 120, I'm going to bring up a photo of, I think this is what you sent me just before. Is this what you're using?
Yeah, so I was using the Lift 120 with the 25 tail, which was probably a mistake. So me and a mate have kind of been making these like a tail adapter fuse thing so that you can use a different tail with the Lift setup.
Yeah.
So I now use that longer fuse, which that KD tail is bolted to that one there. Yeah, that's what I use now.
Yeah.
I only made the longer one like over Christmas, so I didn't have that at the time, which is way better. But yeah,
and maybe let's pause it. Why do you think a longer fuse is better?
Well, have you ridden the Lift gear Downwind?
Yeah, I've been playing around with the 120 a fair bit lately, and I've been using the 32 tail, but I'm 83 kilos pretty much, and you're more like 70.
Yeah, it's about 70.
Yeah.
So the Lift stuff, especially at high speed, like with the Lift tail, it gets pretty pitch unstable.
Yeah, it's like on it's a good way to. It just gets unstable. It's like you're on rollerblades when you get like to that max speed. It's you're going quick, and it's like wow, it's like riding a 20 in surf that's too big, and you go to bottom turn, it's like
yeah. And look, I think it might paddle up better, and it's probably less drag, like especially because the tail's integrated into the fuse, so like you can't pick up weed as easy and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But with I wish I had more tails to to use with it, but with the tail I've got, like it turns like way better. It's more it's more pitch stable. And then I made the longer fuse from after talking to Marcus, and we swapped gear a bit, and he was like, I think you need a longer fuse to like smooth it all out a bit more. And so I tried that, and it's just so much better. Like even I think everything about it is better. Like it turns better, like you can lean into it a bit more. And it's more like doing a rail turn as opposed to like a whippy slidey thing.
Yeah.
Like it changes the foot pressure a bit, so it's less like back foot. It's more balanced. I think you can paddle up easier. You get more drive out of the pump. So yeah, you can kind of, it's not that much longer, but
yeah, I brought it back up just to sort of see, and it's not that much, I guess, compared to the fuse you had, it's a bit longer, but compared to the production, it's not that much longer.
Yeah, so it's probably about, it doesn't look it, but so the hole spacing on that fuse over on the right is 30 mil, so it's about 30 mil longer than the leading edge is 30 mils further back from where the lift 25 is. And I think the 32 is longer, but I haven't really tried that. I tried it once or twice, it just felt too big.
Yeah.
But yeah, the long fuse is awesome. And like Reedy, my good mate, he's using the similar kind of gear, and he reckons the long one feels way better as well. So I don't know, I think there's something in it.
yeah, I guess for me, what I found is, especially when doing longer downwind runs, a longer fuse, I just make less mistakes. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
You get more glide per pump. So it's like on a shorter fuse, I feel like I'm using a lower gear on a bike. I've got to pedal more. Yeah. It's like that. Whereas a longer fuse, it's like that. So you're using less energy, basically for the same amount of glide.
Yeah, and it feels like you sort of get projected forward a bit more as opposed to up and down. It just seems a bit more drivey. I don't think there's a difference in stall speed. I'm not, and I think you can go quicker. Like it's probably got more drag, but I think just because of the extra stability, it just gives you the confidence to, like ride higher and just be, more stable at high speed.
Yeah, there's a few things, I guess. The fuse length is one thing. I think there's a bit more going on than just that, though. Have you changed the pitch of the rear wing, or is it?
Yeah, fully. And look, I think that's like just as important as the tail. Like, and I play around with a bunch of different shims and things, and like you can notice the difference of a like 0.25 degree shim.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like not being able to change it sucks really. So if you can get it, and everyone's a little bit different, like I like the tail a little bit flatter with a bit less lift, whereas Reedy, my mate, likes it like with a bit more lift. And if you put extra shim in the tail to give you more lift, like it's slower, but you can kind of like with an extra 0.5 degree to how you would normally ride it, it almost turns like the 120 into the 170.
Right. Yeah.
Like it makes a huge difference. So not quite that extreme, but there's for sure a difference. And depending on the conditions, you can kind of play with it a bit. And
yeah. Absolutely. And I think so yeah, first of all, I guess there's the fuse length, which is going to make a big difference. Second thing is the tail in itself. Like I think the lift tail is 50-50 the whole way through. So basically it's at that top speed, it's really, really skatey. Like unstable, I guess is the word that comes to mind for me. The KD tail, I think it's a really good at, what I found is it's really good at high speed. I found you actually lost a little bit at low speed, but I think you're probably picking that back up with the shimming. So you're creating that little bit extra. Yeah. What I'm actually really interested to hear from you is, you said you sort of made it feel a bit more front foot and you get a bit more drive out of your pumps. What I found with the lift stuff is that a pogo stick, when you're pumping, you just feel like you're going up and down, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're not actually driving forward. So coming from, riding GoFall for 5 years, GoFall is so front footed, but every time you pump, you get like squirted forward. Whereas the lift, every time I pumped, I just felt like I went up, down. And that was kind of it. So, so forward or up, down. And obviously to downwind, if you pump, you're usually trying to get up and over things. So if you're pumping and you're going forward and down, that's a nice thing. Whereas if you're on the lift, it's different. When I pump, I feel like I'm just going up, down and staying in the one spot.
Yeah.
So by changing the shim and the tail and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, like if you ever get a chance to, if you we can make you one up if you want one, but it's you got to try and you got to know, and you don't like, and even like I tried a friend's tail last week or the week before that was a fully symmetrical foil section, and so you put a bit more shim in it, and that's how it likes to ride, and it was just like insanely easy to paddle up. But then it has different characteristics like turning and at high speed that, like, and you got to try all this. You got to try like as much gear as you can and experiment with it to know like what it does and what you like and what you don't like. And like if I'm surfing, like I'll use the shorter fuse because it's like you can turn it harder and you're not going as fast. And so it's cool.
Super cool. I guess for me, especially because I've been trying a bit more gear lately, it's I've been enjoying playing with it. I guess while we're on the lift stuff, I think it's worth talking about. I guess there's the pogo stick feel, and like that's what I normally to accelerate on my go fall stuff. I'll pump to try to get forward, whereas I don't feel it does as much on the lift. What I find the lift does, I guess, better is to go faster. I feel like turning. So if you turn left or right, like, say there's a bump here and I'm behind it, I'll actually try to get up and over it. And then once I get just to the top, I'll actually turn around it. And that gives me the speed. It's like you just get shot through a cannon. And that's, to me, that's way better than pumping. So you're going to just like come around that section and then go.
Yeah. And look, and like I think something that I really like about the lift like 120 is that it as you say, like it accelerates so quick. Like you can just like, do like a bottom turn almost and go back up to the top of the bump, and then you just get like catapulted down it. Whereas with other forms, like you just like it's awesome. But I think the other thing as well, and with that foil in particular, like compared to other foils that I've tried, like some of the Axis stuff, like, and I think that may even have a longer fuse than what I'm using, is because it doesn't turn as like, it's not as agile. You then can't like bounce off all the little bits of energy that are out there. Like I think with that, well, what I find with the 120 anyway, is you can just sort of bounce off everything that comes your way, and you've just got so many more options because you can move so quickly. Which is really cool. But I don't know, maybe like, so can you share like what you've been riding and what you've been finding? And
I guess you're interviewing me now. I like it.
No, man. Well, I want like I was saying before, like you want the info. Like it's so cool to know what people have been doing and see what they're riding and stuff. It's awesome, and what they're feeling.
So for me, I guess to start with, probably to me the biggest disadvantage with the lift for the boards I'm riding, and obviously I've got a whole range of boards, is the boxes are too far back in the boards I'm riding. So I've been using these box extenders. That Brad Dela Cruz. I'll find it and I'm gonna put it up here. Maybe when I edit it up. But they're just like a longer box, and you bolt them into the board and you can move it like kind of a lot further forward. So it allows me to basically, it makes it feel normal.
Cool.
Let's actually while we're talking about, I guess that to me, that's the lift stuff is great, but so much adjusting has to go on, I feel, and that's almost like the biggest negative. My boxes are too far back. I want to get a tail adapter, so to speak, and that's not production. And then I feel like I want to shim it as well. So there's like sort of three things that it's like, look, I like the 120s. Totally, to me, it's a magic wing. It's super magic, but it's takes a while to get going. The 170 in lighter winds, I can get going pretty easy, but it doesn't feel that fast compared to other stuff I've tried. So it's like a big step backwards. I feel the 170, and then the 200 is obviously even bigger again. So it's kind of like, yes, the 120 is epic, but if they had, something in between, which I've heard rumors there is something coming in between the 120 and the 170, which I think would be awesome for, and potentially a smaller one too, is what I've heard, but maybe just rumors.
And look, like, I mean, I use the 120 basically all the time, unless it's either super weedy or it's like, just over 10 knots. But even if it was 10 knots, I'd probably still choose to use it if there was no weed, because once you're going, it's like, it's awesome. And it normally only, you can normally get it going kind of within a minute anyway. But I think, with lots of these foils, like the lift foils or the Armstrong stuff, for example, you can't really judge it unless you've tried it in a board with the boxes way forward. Like I was riding the lift stuff on my old board.
I'm going to bring it up. So I think I have it here. So let's see it here.
Yeah, so the one on the left was my old board, which is a 6.0 by 24 by 79 liters, which I think is kind of similar to what
exactly what I use.
Yeah. Epic board, like really good. I used to, before I was using the lift stuff, I was using GoFoil, and it's a great board. But when I wanted to use the lift stuff, because that's what I was surfing with, you just had to stand like so far back on the board to like you had to shuffle back like as you were paddling up, as you were getting board speed up, because you can't do it on the surface because you'll just sink the tail. So like you can make it work, but once you get it on a board with the boxes in the right spot, like it's a whole new foil. And like so I think it's, and I guess I don't know, there's probably someone out there who's interested, but I think I measured it before, the where I have the mast on my current board. It's 65 centimeters from the tail to the where the front bolt goes.
You sent it to me, so it's this one. No, that's paddle. No, it's somewhere in here. That's another one. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So those boxes. So my friend Andrew helped me make the board, and those boxes are 16-inch boxes. And so after I'd been using, like on the old board, I realized that if I wanted to be able to use like a front-footed foil and a back-footed foil, like say a lift and a GoFoil, or a lift and an axis or something on the same board, then like the 10-inch boxes that normally you get just literally aren't big enough. Like I think you need about almost a 14-inch box if you want to use a front-footed and a back-footed foil on the same board. So these are 16 inches, but you could probably chop 2 inches off them and they would be fine. Like, and I think if you were to use I haven't used a GoFoil or an axis on this board, but I think the back of it, that'd be jammed up against the back of the box, and there's maybe not even enough space. Like you may even not be able to get it far enough back. So it's So
do you think you went a little bit too far? Because if you're running your lift with, I guess, what is that? That's like almost,
for sure. Yeah,
probably 6 centimeters of wasted space at the front. So if you had moved that a little bit further back,
if I do it again, I would have moved it back by probably an inch, and I know that would then give me enough at the back for the like some of the other foils. And then I've used an Armstrong, a mate's Armstrong, and that goes even further forward than the lift, so you still do want some of that room up the front. So I think it's not something that a lot of brands are doing at the moment, that are using like really long boxes. And I think these came from, I had to get them from New Zealand, from PC, I think. So like longer boxes are it's the way to go. Like if you get a board without them, you're kind of then married to a few brands, and you can't try your friend's stuff, and you can't experiment.
So I'm gonna share. I found my box extenders. So this is
awesome.
So this is what I'm using to run with the lift.
Wow.
And I wish I had a tape measure to see exactly how much further forward, but you can see the back here. So what's that? I guess that's an inch, or what's that? 2 marks. So 2 inches further forward.
Wow. So
at least.
So I'm guessing that the boxes in my old board are similar to where yours were. Where your boxes are. And where the boxes are where I ride it is 4 inches, so 10 centimeters further forward than the front of the boxes on the old board.
So there you go.
So if you're 2 inches forward, like you probably actually want another 2 inches on top of that, which is just
wow.
And then you'll probably find that it rides like totally different.
So I think these are at the very front. You actually see there's a line there where I had it originally. That was the lift did that. I think when I shimmed it.
So it is probably about 4 inches. So
gotcha. I don't think I could move it. I guess these bolts could be moved a little bit further back, so you got a little bit extra play that I could have moved it further forward on. But it's
awesome.
The only disadvantage is obviously these are kind of thick, like it's like aluminium. It's and then their wing nuts go on top of the screws here. So the little wing nuts are going to create a little bit, like it's just it's marginal, but it's a little bit of drag. But you know, when we're popping up, it makes all the difference. Everything.
Yeah. When you're out the water, it doesn't matter. But yeah, that's awesome. Like,
yeah. So Brad De La Cruz, he's actually just got a big shipment of these. So anyone who's looking to try some different brands and whether you need to move your boxes further forward or further back, these are a great way to sort of, you know, quick little easy way to know, okay, yeah, this will work if I move my box further forward or back. And but in saying that, you can also, like in the surf, I use these and you didn't even notice, like, you know, a wave is so good, whereas downwind we're looking for the minimal drag possible. So it's
and your board's not like showing any signs of not liking all that extra stress. And
nah, not at all. Like that, I was pretty worried about that, but I actually was using these for a while, and then I actually took, I guess because it's forward, and only when you pump it's forward, it's like all sort of reinforced, it's so flat. But when I took it off and I was using my GoFall stuff, and actually on a board that I know is weak, if I had these boxes on or these extenders on, and I hit the ground my GoFall stuff, and I it was an old board, and yeah, the boxes had a little, you know, sign of weakness. I got it fixed since. I've used these boxes on it as extenders, and first surf, and you know, no signs of any weakness. So no, I think it's pretty solid, which is it's cool, right? Like, I guess.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
I think like, definitely longer boxes would be better, but if you don't have longer boxes and you want a quick fix, this is for sure the go.
Yeah, that's the answer.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah, so I've got another photo that I want to, I guess, sort of where would it be? Let me bring it up first. I've got basically just showing the difference between what I want to show. Difference between, I guess, the axis. I got axis, lift, and GoFoil, a photo of all of each. And I think this is going to be a good photo to sort of show why those certain foils feel more front-footed or back-footed. So here it is. So you can see here, I'm going to try and draw on it too. So we've got the lift where the mast goes in is here and here. So that's our mast. The axis when the mast goes in is here and here. So already that's a huge difference. And then the GoFoil, I think, is probably here and like here. So you can see the GoFoil and the axis are pretty similar. And that's why I guess they have that, to me, they feel very similar. Whereas the lift, like, look how much further forward that is. It's like almost the back of the mast is like the start. So I guess that so that to me was super interesting. I'm like, I want to line this up and sort of see where it sits. But obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't fully understand. Like, it totally makes sense looking at that. Like, you know, why you'd need to ride it further forward in the box, but I don't understand how that gives you the, you know, the difference in front and back. It's so strange, But yeah, it's for sure like the Armstrong and the lift that have the mast way close to the front wing are back-footed, and the others are front-footed. So yeah, and the like the Takuma's the same. That's really front-footed, and that's more similar to the GoFoil and stuff. But yeah, really interesting. And look how long your GoFoil fuse is. It's a monster.
And I think this is, what is this? This is the, can I zoom in? No, I can't zoom in on this. Surely. Get rid of that. So it's the ultra short. So I'm not sure what that I guess that means that it's but yeah, definitely that's with the long pedestal too. So I have used the GoFoil. That's the quickest I've ever gone on this GoFoil, the RS1000. I was using the short tail, which so the shorter pedestal. So it's the short fixed tail, the red one. And that was the quickest I've ever gone. I'm like, oh, maybe there's something in shorter. And I think it was just that I was going so fast and the conditions were so good. And it still isn't even that short. So it didn't matter quite as much. I've got a better photo actually of this. So this kind of shows, again, that sort of, this is the axis versus the GoFoil, and you can see like the back screw, which that's, you know, the short fuse or short tail on the GoFoil. That's where you'd actually, the wing would be,
the tail wing,
it would actually be there. So it's kind of similar to the, what is it? It's the ultra short from Axis. So that's pretty interesting.
The long pedestal on the GoFoil was crazy. I never I never really liked it. I was always like the short one as well.
Yeah, and I guess remember, like I said before, like I fall off more on the short than I would the long. So, and even the short of the GoFoil is quite long. But like when I was testing a lot of stuff short and long for doing like long downwind runs, for the longer fuse or like longer tail, longer pedestal, I would fall off far less than if I was using the shorter tail, which like it's just extra stability. And it's also what you get used to, and it's all sort of like for like. But yeah, I definitely. Well, I know Marcus. So Marcus was using the Axis, a King of the Cut, and he uses the short, whereas this is the ultra short. So I'll get back to that photo. So this is the ultra short, and then Marcus was using the short. So maybe it's similar or somewhere in between the short and the long of GoFoil. Which
and like I reckon the what do you say, the short? I reckon that's too long on the Axis. Well, it's too long for me anyway. It just can't like quite turn as much, and you're a bit more locked in. But yeah, that's probably awesome. Slightly
for me, the ultra short has felt pretty good. Yeah, and I guess you asked like in terms of I've had the opportunity to test a lot of gear lately, and using the lift a fair bit, and the 120 similar to you. Like when I first started using, I'm like, oh, there's no way I can use this in anything under 15 knots. And then I just used it all the time for almost all conditions. And like I said, I was getting up within sort of a minute, maybe two. But the most important thing was just waiting for that right little bump. And if you just couldn't, like, I guess I can on the GoFoil, especially, I can just like sort of grind up, like the gun goes, and I'll be just like, yep, see you guys. I'm ready to go. Like I could get up in next to nothing.
And like I think that's a good point, right? Like if you're racing, you're probably going to choose a different foil if you're out there just having fun, right? Like, for me, when you're just out there to have fun, like if you take a minute to get up or 2 minutes, like who cares? And same with the board. You go and narrow a board, it's easier to get up, and you might fall off a little bit, but who cares? Like, but when you're going, it's so much better, and it is easy to get up on all that stuff. So I think the wings you choose are also depending on what you're trying to do on them. Because not everyone wants to race. So
no, definitely. The first time I used the lift, actually, we got a little spot called Brownwater here in Sydney, like Northern Beaches, and it's like in a nor'easter. It's just straight on shore, and the bumps really stand up quite nice. So you can either, what I normally do is you jump off the rocks, and you get it's maybe 800 meters. You sort of paddle 100 meters out into the bay, and then 800 meters downwind. So you get it's like a little practice run before you go send a 12K downwinder. So you just know that you're going to get up on that smaller foil that you're using. So the first time I used the 120, I did that, and because my boxes are a long way back for the lift. When I was getting up, I was almost getting up, and I'd stall, almost get up and stall, and I had to find where I normally stand is like here, but I had to move this back foot so far back and then this far back. And I guess the disadvantage for that is to get speed, you need to be forward on your board.
Totally. And
then
to get
lift, you need to be back on your board.
So like you have to stand where the board wants you to stand, and then as you build speed, you have to go back and back and back like 10 centimeters. And then once you're going, you've got like 10 centimeters of extra 4 inches of extra board, so it sucks. But it'd be awesome if there was like you're saying before, like for the lift stuff, if there was a size in between the 120 and the 170, because like the 170 you can paddle up on flat water if you really want to, and then the 120 is like tiny, so for light wind, a smaller one, like something in the middle, would be epic.
So just a rumor, but I think if they did come out with that, I think it'd be pretty amazing. Especially for bigger guys like myself. Well, not even that big, but like you're 70 kilos, and I sort of class myself mid-range, 83, which I guess maybe is heavy.
Oh man, I'm pretty sure you could just go beast mode and paddle anything up. So I don't know if I buy it.
With enough practice. The other thing I guess that I found was trying to get used to because I had the lift gear for a little while, probably 6 weeks. Or maybe longer, and I wasn't using it exclusively, but I was trying to switch back and forth, and I find switching back and forth from the lift to the GoFoil was like using the extreme end of back foot on the lift to the extreme end of front foot on the GoFoil. So it usually took me like if I did back-to-back days on the 120, by the second day, paddling up and going downwind, I would be like getting up sort of fine. But if I had just used the GoFoil and I went then to the lift, then it was just like, oh, how do I get up on this thing? It was really
yeah, totally. And then like me and Marcus swap boards a bit, and like we're on different gear, and you get up on like something different, and it takes you like a K to like relax and figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
So it's crazy the differences. But I guess the point is that you just got to try all your friends' stuff and anything that you can get your hands on, because the more you try, the more you learn, and you'll then learn what you like. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then just in the last probably week, I've just got my hands on the Axis ART range, and I use the Lift 120 the morning before the Axis stuff arrived, and we had like sort of 20 to 25 knots and a nor'east swell, so it was really good conditions. So I used that, and then it was pretty quick. Like I averaged 25.2 k's an hour or something. So on the lift stuff, which for me was quick for our local run. And then that afternoon, I used the ART 899 for the same run, and I did 25.6. So it was a little bit windier, but I was pretty dialed into the lift stuff. And for my first go on the 899, obviously it felt a bit more like home, I guess, like the GoFoil, because it was that little bit more front foot pressure. They sent me it was a 90 centimeter. I'm like, oh, I wish you guys sent me a 70 or an 80, because 90 centimeter mast just meant I had more. I was coming off the Lift 28 inch, which is like 70 centimeter mast. So I was
76 or 78 or something like that.
So I was used to riding a lot, I guess, lower. So my point is, I guess the Axis stuff felt super quick. The 899 was crazy. Actually, I got up first bump, so I was like sort of waiting. I was trying to be a little bit selective because I knew I was on a smaller foil. The 899 kind of is similar span. Actually, I've got a photo of this.
I haven't tried the 899. I've tried the 999 and the high aspect prototype one. But the 899 looks insane. I'd love to try it when the conditions are good. This could be a good photo to share. The 899 is, to me, it's not the perfect photo. I think I've got too much stuff in my room, but this is the Lift 120 versus 999. And you can see, you can't see the full span. And I guess what if I draw on it? And they're different in like outline as well, right? Like the leading edge of that Axis like range is super straight. Whereas the Lift has like a little bit of sweep in it.
For sure. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but you can see it's probably a little bit. It's probably a little bit bigger. A little bit bigger. I do have a better photo. I might be able to, if it's not on my computer, I might have to put it over the top. So if you're watching back, I'll be putting an image here. So for those watching back, here's the HA120 versus the ART 899, and you can see that 899 is actually smaller in span. But I guess they're more similar. Like the 799 I've tried in the surf, and that felt pretty small. I think a super windy day you could use downwind, but I guess the main thing that I've found with the Axis stuff is the 999, the 899, and the 799 they're all pretty close. So, and they're all sort of around that 120 sort of size, whereas the Lift stuff, the 120, nothing below it, nothing above it to the 170. It's just a big jump.
It's a huge jump. But look, that one, anyway, that 120 is amazing, because like the best thing about it is that it's like a super efficient wing, and it's great to downwind on, but you can also like turn on it. And that's something that I've been trying to do lately, is just like really try and work on being able to turn harder and being smoother and stuff. And you can actually turn that 120, whereas some of the other high aspect stuff, like it's got that locked in kind of high aspect feel and you can't surf it. So it's pretty cool. And I guess there's two ways that you can like approach downwinding, and that you can just try and go mega fast, which is great fun. It took me a while to enjoy it. but once you can relax a bit more, it's great. But then you can also just try and surf. And different foils want to do different things. Like I'm sure the guys that are in, the M2O and stuff, will be on like crazy high aspect wings that you probably can't turn, but they're just crazy efficient. So yeah,
I guess I found, I actually had a really fun wing session yesterday on the 899, and look, it's definitely got more drive, and I guess it's maybe that's that front foot pressure, but I sort of found you can still turn it, but it's not, the lift 120 is very whippy, I guess. It's, and another thing worth mentioning is the lift 120 is big for its size. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah.
Like for its actual span and its chord, it seems it's got like this little concave in it. And to me, that makes it feel way bigger than what it actually is. So for me, actually surfing the 120, I felt like I guess we got a bit more power than you guys do in Perth, not so much south or north, but like I found on the 120, I was overpowered a lot of the time in the surf on it. So like, Bennett's is probably, obviously he proves me wrong, but he's ripping on it. But in saying that, like I went towing with Bennett's, and we had the 120 on the back of the ski, and we used the Viper 130.
Yeah.
And the Viper 130 was so much better to tow with. The 120 just felt like a longboard. Like it felt so slow.
Right.
Like, and just like the roundest arcs. Whereas the 130, which the Viper range actually looks really similar to the RS 1000.
They look like old GLs, which I think
like
is the same
old GLs.
as the RS.
Exactly. So it's like almost the exact same outline.
I
actually overlaid them with, it might have been the 150 I overlaid, the RS 1000 and the Viper 150 are like the same outline, it seems like. Epic. Like the GL 140 was always one of my sort of more favorite wings to use, because you could still pump out, and it had this really nice turn.
It was awesome.
The Viper 130 feels like a smaller version of that, and I guess I'll put up some footage now of us surfing it, but it was super fun. Like it was my first session on it, and it felt like home. Like I was like, oh yeah, I know this wing.
Cool.
But back to my point, we had the 120 on the back of the ski, and it felt like we used it for, I think I got 3 waves on it, and I'm like, oh, let me try your gear.
Look, when I surf foil, if there's like any power in the waves, I use the lift 150. I don't know if you tried that, but just because it doesn't go as fast, but it turns way better. So it's cool. It's cool trying different stuff. And
on the 150, you're using your tail as well, your adapter.
I am that shorter one with the KD tail. And just because it turns a bit better than the lift tail, and it's a bit more stable. I haven't tried surfing with the long one, but I'm guessing that I won't like it as much as the short one. Like I think the guys that are in like Eric, the Progression Project guy, I know some of the people, and probably Adam as well, I think they're using fuses that are shorter than the lift fuse, and that seems to be what they're liking as well. So
it does seem to be what they're liking. I used Bennett's. I think I was using my mask, but I used his tail, and he was using the boomerang tail.
Oh yeah,
have you seen that KD one?
I supposedly that's quite good for downwind because it drops your stall speed a bit.
It felt like the stall speed, it felt a lot, I could go a lot slower, but it didn't really lose much of the top speed. The angle, I wish I had a photo of this, what he was using, but the amount of shim, like if that was flat, he was like, there was a big gap.
Negative,
it was huge, the gap that he had. A lot of it made it.
And I don't know like what adapter he uses, but the way that the lift like fuse is that if you look at the center line of the like where the tail goes into the back of the front wing, it's actually on a slightly like negative angle. So if you make like the first adapters that we made were like, I made them like, drew them on the computer and stuff and made them so that it was parallel to the male connection. But the angle that you need the wing on is like about 1.5 or 1.75 degrees negative from there. So it could be that his adapter, is just made on the center line of the connection, which
so it makes it look more dramatic.
Yeah, exactly. So like the last one that I made, the whole thing's like kicked up so that you just bolt the tail straight on. But yeah. I
want to now talk to you about, I guess, your learning process, because a lot of people listening to this are learning to downwind. So obviously sure. I helped a bit, I think, in the start. Like as I said at the start, Coach Casey Club member, alumni.
Absolutely. I'm an advocate for sure. Like my first experience was on I had a Maliko 200.
Yep.
And I went out on that just here in Perth, and I don't know how windy it was, like maybe 15 or 20 knots or something, like probably a pretty good day. I had no idea like what I was doing. I'd never supped before. I had like any kind of instruction. I had no one around me to like ask questions of. I didn't know Marcus and stuff at the time. So I just came into it completely kind of blind. And as I was saying, I was like looking on the internet, watching other people, like the little snippets that I could get to try and figure out what to do. And I think my first run was, from Cop to Swanbourne, which is like, I don't know, 2 Ks or something. Didn't even get like the mildest hint of lift. And I'm like all unstable on the board and falling off. And like my problem at the start was I couldn't like lean in and put enough power into my stroke but maintain stability. And that's because I had the wrong technique and I was so foreign to me. And then I think the second try was the same thing, and I was halfway through and like, oh man, I don't know, maybe this isn't for me. This is so hard.
Yeah.
But then I got like, just when I least expected it, I got just like a little fraction of lift, and like my board lifted off the water for like a split second, and I was like, oh, maybe it's possible. And then I think the next time I tried, and I had no one to kind of tell me what gear to use. So the next time I tried, I had a P180 and it was like 25 knots. And I was like, right, just got to make it work. And I think it was like a 10 Ks or something. And I went out, and it was one of those days that's so windy that, eventually you just have one like almost break on you and catapult you down the swell. And at this point, it's probably worth saying that I learned to like free wing on the ding downwind before I was paddling.
Yeah. So once you're up, you knew what to do.
Yeah. So once I was up, like I went for a few Ks or whatever, and then I think the whole run probably took me like 2 hours. But I got up like a handful of times, and then once I'd done that and like then I was hooked. I was like, right, well, this is it. And I got a GL 210. And that was kind of what I learned on. And then I spent like, I don't know, like at least 2 months, like kind of just very, very slowly progressing. And like the guys who I was winging with downwind were always waiting for me at the end. And sometimes I'd have like nightmares where I wouldn't get up for 20 minutes. And it was like super frustrating. And it's like, and the fun of like, I love learning new stuff. And the challenge of like trying to figure it out, it's just so fun. And I'd be like halfway through a run and I'd be exhausted, and I'd go, right, now tomorrow I'm just going to like ding or kite downwind or something. I'm just going to give it a rest.
Yeah.
And then I wake up the next morning, I'd be like, nah, I've got to get back on, on the horse.
You're an animal.
And keep doing it. So yeah, I just persisted. And then I remember seeing your, I don't know, your post on social media or something about, hey, this downwind, like learning module, and I was like, yeah, that's what I need for like a small price. If I can accelerate my learning, then yeah. Anyway, it was awesome because you obviously got lots of content on there about how to actually paddle, and I sort of around the same time I'd gone out with Marcus and he'd given me a few pointers which made a huge difference.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe we can go into some of the details, some of those things that make a difference. But and then once I did that and got some proper info on how to do it, and this is only like a year ago, and there just was no information.
Yeah.
I then like progressed a lot quicker, and probably the biggest thing for me was meeting Reedy, one of my good mates now, who I met him. He was sort of in the program as well, and we kind of just like buddied up and just would go flat water paddling and go out in like the worst conditions and just try. Like we were filming each other with GoPros, which was like awesome because you can see what you're
going
doing
wrong. And for the coaching stuff, that's what I'm relying on footage to like give you guys the best advice. So that's, remember looking back, it's like,
so totally. So it was epic. And like then once I sort of was in that process of like kind of training, I guess, and I guess that's like a good point, is that like you have to put in the time, and and if you want to get good quickly, you have to like try. Like the flat water paddle sucks, but it exposes all your weaknesses, and it's the same as like dropping down a wing size, just to like give it a go, because you find that it then exposes all the problems that you have, and you're like, right, in this situation, this is like, I can't figure out this part of it, or I'm really bad at just being at that stall speed and knowing how to like sort of dig and get yourself going. And so that was kind of my progression. And then like and I think like a really important thing is you don't need good conditions to learn. Like me and Reedy and Donnie and John and Andrew and some of the other guys like foiled me and Reedy foiled all winter. Like we probably downwinded like twice a week easy in the middle of winter. Like, because
I've always said to Marcus, I'm like, why don't you foil in winter? He's like, nah, you don't foil. There's no downwind in winter. I'm like, dude, you get storms all the time. And he's like, nah, you just don't do it. And I went over there once. I think it was before it was Aussie titles. I can't remember what year it was, but I was there. I'm like, I'm gonna go for a downwinder. And this was before foiling. And I'm like, I just do the sup downwinder. And he's like, yeah, I'll pick you up, but I'm not coming. He's like, it's shit. And I went out there. I'm like, dude, this is epic. Like in Sydney, people would be out there doing it. Like, I would be. Yeah. And he's like, not as good.
Yeah. But so the problem is you just can't, like, you can't do, it's really hard to get days. Like there might only be a small handful of days in winter where you can do like a full coast run of 20 Ks. But, I think, and it doesn't matter where you are. I think you just need to look, look on Google Maps and, figure out in different wind directions where you can go. Like, I mean, we would sort of, the run that we did the most was like jumping off North Mole here, which is like a rock wall that goes a few Ks out to sea. And you can go in like almost onshore and you only go a couple of Ks, but also going in those shitty conditions, like you learn heaps from going in bad conditions. And and I think that's, like it's almost better learning in winter. Like Donnie, one of the guys, like who's a freak at it, he learned like at the end of winter, and then summer came and he came third in the King of the Cut. Like summer came and he was just off, like he was away. So I think, like having the, the right instruction, whether it be online or, and finding someone that's like at the same level as you, that you can kind of feed off each other and, like constantly debrief about what you're learning and what works and what doesn't work. And, and finding people that are better than you as well. Like the number of runs that I've spent like surfing a bump behind Marcus, like trying to figure out what the decisions are he's making and why. And like, and the little tidbits of information that people can give you is just like huge.
When I was like really learning to sup downwind, one of my mates, Matt Notich, we were in Hawaii together, and he did a lot of experience downwinding on an outrigger canoe, so he really knew how to read the bumps, and sup was just like, okay, he sort of transferred that over pretty quick, whereas I learned to sup and I had no idea. Like before sup, I had no idea how to downwind anything, and I came from a surfing background, so I was looking behind me, paddling for that bump, doing all the things that are wrong, and I did a season, or like a month or 2 to 3 weeks on a Maliko run with Matt Notich, and I learned so much. Just we were literally ghosting each other the whole way, and I'd just stick to him. I'm like, I'm not going to let you go, and I learned the tricks, and same when I went with Marcus, we were foiling, and Marcus was just new to foiling. I'd had probably 6 months head start on him, and he was going along and he's pumping. I'm like, mate, you just got to settle down a little bit and just like let it glide. And he stopped and he's like, oh yeah, you're right. And like it just it's just the tip at the right moment can give you so much progression.
Yeah, totally. And look, they're the exact two things that like Marcus told me when he went with me for the first time. It was like, because I was always looking behind me, like turning around, or I'd actually paddle like 90 degrees to the wind, like going out to sea so that I could see the bumps that were coming. And I'd wait for that big one, knowing that
broke on you. Yeah.
Yeah. And then knowing that behind that, there's always that nice troughed out one. But like you have to wait for the like perfect bump. And that's what I was doing. I was just like waiting for the perfect one. Because all I knew how to do was to catch, for that, let the bump catch me. I didn't know how to force my way onto a bump, which is something that you kind of learn over time. And I'm still trying to get better at it. But yeah, that was like one thing that made a huge difference. It was like, don't look behind you, just look ahead, paddle and feel what's going on. And I think it's so true, because I think some of the bumps that you can get going on, like I don't think if you were turning around, you'd actually see them, because they form up so quick and disappear so quick.
Yeah, I've got a video. You sent a video, and I'm going to share it now. And it's the one that you're paddling up, I think, because you're not up yet. So
oh yeah,
I'm going to zoom in a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, so mate. So hit me with the feedback.
yeah. Let's see. I know you're being patient. That's one of the things I tell people.
The video is actually not that good, because I go off this. Crystal loses me on the loses me, so you can't really see it. But this was just the other day. We had some epic conditions.
Nice bumps. We can mind surf these bumps, and now he's up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So and look, I think like choosing that, like the better that you get, there's more bumps that you learn how to catch. Like when you first start, there's only one or two like situations that you know what to do with, and then the more you do it, you add like different
scenarios
in your head that, if this happens, I can go there, or and that's just kind of time in the water. And one of the best things for me was like when Marcus went with me that first time, he paddled next to me and he was like, right, just watch what I do. And he was choosing these bumps, and I was like, man, that's not even a bump. Like I would never have even thought to have caught that. And then, and then so like then I was like, wow, I'm doing this like so wrong. And then you slowly learn how to do it better. And look, one of the biggest things for me on being able to get up easier has been like going to a narrower board. Like the board that I'm on now is 21 3/4 wide, so it's quite narrow, and look, it's by no means like a perfect board. It got half made in my shed and half made in my mate's shed. So like if I did it again, the rocker I would change, and there's things I would change about it. But just that, like and I don't think like that many people have gone to narrow boards yet. But the narrower you go, it just gets like exponentially easier to paddle up, and the performance improvement is like massive in terms of being able to paddle up, and then how it feels when you're surfing is just way better. But the drop in stability is like actually not that much for like what you get out of it.
What's really interesting is from, I guess, coming from the SUP racing background, like we know that, like if someone's riding a 28 wide board and someone else is riding a 20 wide board, like if it's flat water, like the 28 is going to be ridiculously slow. Like for me, even riding my ocean board, which is 14 by 24 versus my flat water board, which is 14 by like 21, I'll be over a kilometer. I'm about somewhere between 20 and 30 seconds faster on the flat water board, so like and that's not even sprinting, that's just going along. So like it's funny that it's taken us this long, but longer, skinnier. Stability, I guess, is the main thing that sort of held people back from going skinnier. But I think there's enough tricks like concaves and bevels and chines that you can create that stability. But the narrowness means less drag, and for that 10 stroke sprint to get up on the foil, like it's as long as you mentioned it earlier, as long as you're able to have enough stability and still put power in with your paddle stroke, you're going to be sweet.
Yeah, and look, like I still fall off my board like all the time. Like each I don't know, probably every, I don't know what it would be, like every second time I paddle up, like I fall off.
No, but even like I'm on 6 by 24 and the 79, the same as what you're using or that you were using, and that I still fall off on that sometimes too. You know what I mean? Like it's not like it's the most stable board, but I'm probably sinking it a bit more than you were.
Yeah, so I hear. But look, like the first time I tried the 24 wide board, man, I couldn't stand on it.
Yeah.
I was just like falling off, and I think like, you know, you just got to go out in the flat water with a foil on it and paddle it around and get used to it. Like you certainly, like, unless you're a like really experienced paddler or you're just a freak, like no one should be starting on a board that's like 21, 22, 23 inches wide. But it doesn't take you that long to get to the point where you can do that. And you just got to do it, and just, you know, you might spend a run or two flailing around, falling off and stuff, but you'll get used to it, and then everything's just so much better.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's and I guess you know, I chat to Matt Costa a fair bit, and he's just bought this 5.7 by 22.5. It's like 100 liters, so super thick. It's the 52 foil coat. So Greg Closier's brand. And he's loving it. And obviously, like for me, a 6-foot board doesn't feel very long, because I'm used to riding a 14-foot or unlimited board. So like I get used to the length. How long's your new one?
I think it's just under 6 foot.
Yeah.
So I think like maybe 5'11 and a half or something. But
would you like want to go shorter? Like, I guess this is.
Look, I thought I did. Like, I thought I was thinking about making another board and going shorter, because, you know, it would obviously feel like better once you're going. But like Reedy's he made a board which is 5.8 by 22, and mine's about 6.0 by 21 3/4. So. And we, you know, swap boards, and I find it so hard to get going. I'm on his board. I don't know how he does it. He's a beast. Yeah. But like the difference and they're very similar bottom shape, and the difference in like board speed on the water on a 6.0 versus a 5.8 is like dramatic. So I thought I would want to go shorter, and then after trying his board, like, and I'm sure you get used to it. Like, he paddles it up easier than I paddle my board up. But when he gets on my board, he gets up off in 5 seconds.
Yeah, gotcha.
So I don't think I would go shorter, just because I'd rather get up quicker. You know, especially if you're like foiling with a bunch of mates, which we're actually able to do now, because there's heaps of people getting into it. We can go out with like 6 people and all ride like in a little pack. It's epic. And, you know, in those situations, you don't want to be the guy that's like a kilometer behind because you can't get up.
Yeah. And I guess that comes down to the sort of racing aspect of things, doesn't it? And that's in a group. And I guess Matt Costa's doing most of his downwinders on his own. So he's like, I don't care if I don't get up straight away. He's been prone foiling. He hasn't yet. He wants to prone foil that 5.7, 22, 100 litre, 52 foil code board up onto the foil.
Can't wait to see it.
So I'm like, all right, let's see it, mate. You know, because I know you've done it. But
look, not like I was saying before, like no doubt he'll do it. Like it's fully possible. It's just, is it?
What I'd like to see is him proning up, and then someone, you know, if he had a clone him on the same board next to him, and like if you said go, how much quicker the sup got up versus the prone. You know, that's the test that I want to see.
Yeah, and like, you know, like it's something I often look at after runs. It's like, I have an Apple Watch, and, you know, you can look at your track, and I often look at like when I came down, how long it took me to get going again. And, you know, so you could fully understand it from that, and just see like a run on prone, a run on paddle, like how quick you made it happen.
And it just means you're up and foiling for longer, is I guess. And to me, like, that's got to be the goal. Like, if I can start my run earlier, and if I do come down, start it up again quicker, then that's the advantage of the SUP. And that's the other thing is, I guess, do you do many prone? Did you do many prone downwind runs when you were learning?
I did a couple. I think it was during the period that I was supping as well. Like, I had a mate tie me up on a kite once, and I don't know, went for 15 Ks or something. And then another time, like, you know, chipping into waves and going, and, you know, like, you can go for 15 Ks, but I haven't done it this season, because like, I like to be able to turn harder and go way out to sea, and like kind of push it a bit more. And I feel like if I'm proning, you're always kind of safety surfing, which is, I don't know, not as fun for me. But I can see like why people like, because there's a bit of a like mental game in it as well. Like, it's a challenge. But and especially like with the weed here, I'd only do it if I knew, like, I'd done a run that day or the day before and I knew there was no weed, because you're just going to run into weed and paddle in. And then plus, if you're going with other people, like, it's slow going prone. Like, sometimes it might take you 10 minutes to get a chip in, and then you fall off, and like, it's a bit of a logistics thing as well. But yeah, if you're in a place like some of the spots in Hawaii where you can just paddle into the reef and go again, it'd be epic fun. I'd love to do it more.
Yeah, but I guess so. I did that chat with Eric Sturman, and they did the basically Turtle Bay to Mokes, more or less. So it's like it's a long run, and it kind of cuts across the island. Like, it sort of cuts in like this, and they went straight across. I know what you mean. Yeah, and John and Nathan Florence. Prone the whole way, and there's like a few sections, like, there's reefs, but there's like 1 to 2 kilometer gaps between some spots. And like, I know in Hawaii, like, there's not much weed over there, but one turtle pops up and you run into it, or there's stuff you can hit, you know what I mean, like, or you just have a lapse in judgment, and it just means you're now paddling prone for 20 minutes.
Man, I paddled prone on my sup for about an hour. It's not fun.
yeah, and especially down south, Mandurah. It's a few sharks, a few big fish over there, but I guess it was very When like Crystal thought I'd been eaten by a shark or something, she was in panic mode, which I didn't even think about when I was out there. Like, what everyone else was thinking, I was just thinking about getting to the end. But find that bump. Zoned in. I want to bring up that video again, because I guess in terms of, there's paddling up, which we don't actually see in the video, but then there's the lines that you take while downwinding. This is something I do, but this for the Coach Casey Club, this is like what I do every Tuesday. People upload videos like this, and we go through what's good and what's bad. And what I saw that was really good once you got up. So you're up and going, and I'm just going to sort of pause it so you're pumping there, and then see that just slight change in angle. I'm going to pause it and draw. Basically, the line you're taking now is like the wind's going this way, you're going straight downwind for now, but you're not going straight the whole time. And I guess what you do is you're going across and out, and then you're turning back down, then you're going across and out and turning back down. So I'm going to clear those, and we'll play it again. And you can see going across, starting to turn a little left, and it's just slight, but then you turn back straighter, and especially with the lift, you get speed from that. But those angles that you're sort of running, it's just there, especially. See that angle there. So the thing that a lot of people forget to do when they're downwinding is going across the wind. And I guess if the wind's this direction, you can go straight downwind, you can go 90 degrees to the wind, and you can go 90 degrees the other way to the wind. And you've got this whole area to play with, and you're still getting pushed along. You can actually also go like this far upwind without losing too much as well. And there's guys that Nathan posted a video northeast, southwest the other day, but mainly north. He's mainly heading north, but he'll go do a full loop sometimes and go back to the direction he was going. So you can go all directions, but if you go upwind for too long, you're going to lose speed pretty quickly. But yeah, this is something that I guess people got to realize, that you have to use these extremities. If you're going north, you've got to use east and west as well. And a lot of people forget that. And that's something that, and then what it means is you're only using half of or a third of the options available to you. There's so much
totally.
more.
And like, I think one of the things that took me ages to realize is that you got to look all around you as well. Like, I was always sort of like tunnel vision on going left. Because that's getting you offshore. And then so the more you can relax, and the better you get, and the more you can relax and look around and see what's going on. Like, quite often you could like, you could cut off to the left and pump out to the next one, or you could just, like, there's probably one to the right of you that you could just turn right on and then chill on that one for a bit and then go back again. You don't even have to pump. So like, having that awareness of what's going around you is huge.
And that's one thing I guess I talk about in the course, is awareness of your surroundings. And like, even one of the things, just even paddling out before you even get going, I tell people to sit down on their board and just look like just sort of mind surf the bumps around you and like where would you potentially be getting up? Where's your chip in? Where's your takeoff spot? And then obviously the same once you're up and going, have a look around and like, yeah, awareness. And you nailed it. You spoke about it then. It's so important knowing where all those little pockets of energy are.
Yeah, totally. And look, I think that's like one of the things of, spending a bit of time, like learning how to go fast. Like you learn, like it taught me so much about like efficiency and finding different energy out there. And like it helped me massively just with my efficiency in general, in like trying to go quick. You have to pick up everything that kind of comes your way, and you have, because you don't want to drop down from your like top speed. You want to maintain it. So you got to find all that energy and go different directions. And like that helped me a lot anyway.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm going to play this video out. Just sort of, I guess we got that little diagram, I guess I've got, and you can kind of see you going straight downwind now, and then you're cutting left. And that little turn there, that's like a stall. It's like a little S stall turn.
Yeah.
And you can see you're pumping now. But then now you're coming back right towards the end there. So I don't know, just being aware of all the different angles that you can use. And you sent another video into, and here you go. So now you're surfing a long way into shore. Yeah. So we can sort of see all those different, I guess, angles now going down the coast, like a long sort of straight downwind. But the bump is sort of angled in. So you're running left on the bump. So all these little like intricacies when we downwind, and then that little stall back out to sea. And again, there it is. Yeah, all the angles. Oh, you're about to line up a bomb here. The other thing, I'm only going to touch on it just slightly because I don't want to give all the secrets away. But
why not?
But I'm going to go back a little bit because it was really. So just here, you can kind of see in our JB, who's is the Nash distributor, but also he's in the Coach Casey Club, and he talked about we talked about the positioning of where you want to be on the bump once you're up and going, and you can see there's a pretty nice peak there, really nice trough there, and then you're just on the top of that, almost behind the peak on the one behind, which is like, I actually talk about exactly this being kind of perfect, especially if you're on a faster foil. So 120, super quick, you can get away with being almost on the backside of the peak. But what's really nice, what I like, the reason I paused it here is look at all this. You can go as fast as you want all the way until you catch up to this one here. So you've got a nice long runway to sort of draw any sort of different angle you want. And JB talked about it as if what he was doing is he was sitting here a lot.
Yeah. So
right on the uphill, so he was trying, like same as a SUP raceboard, you actually want your nose about there because your tail sits about here because your board's so long. Whereas on a 6-foot board, it's different. We talked about this is the camel's hump, and then this is the camel's neck. And you don't want to be up around the neck. You want to be right up on the hump. Yeah.
Yeah. So and the hard bit is, especially when you're riding a faster foil, and actually the fun bit is that you then have to turn back up to the top of it all the time. And if you always finish your turns back up the top of the bump, you've always got a downhill in front of you.
Yeah, you got space in front of you. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And it's something that I've only learned recently is like, especially if you've got a really slow bump in front of you, like it's crazy how slow you can go. Even on a tiny foil, if you sit right at the top of the bump, like it's almost impossible to stall. Like yes. If you're right up the top of especially a small bump. And once you kind of figure that out and you get more confidence, you figure out where the stall speed is, like it just gets so much easier. Like you can ride right up the top of a tiny bump, like way slower than what you ever could, like prone pumping back out in the surf. And I don't know how it works, but it somehow does. Like you can go super slow, if you put yourself in the right spot.
Yeah, like I've like nosedived or touched down that many times, like just in this sort of section here, and it doesn't even matter. Like I'll touch down and you just pop straight back up again. I'll like be going so slow, like you're talking stall speed, and I'll go so slow that I stop, and I'm like my board's on the water, and I just pop back up without even pumping. You sort of lean back a little and you get up again, and it's because you've got that sort of downhill. So, even if you touch down, all you have to do is straighten your board out, and then you've got this gap to create that lift. Plus you've got the wind behind you. So the wind is giving you some sort of energy. plus there's the bump, which is more or less a wave. So it's like a lot of people stress about touching down and this and that. But if you touch down in this sort of downhill section, it doesn't matter. It's if you touch down in this sort of section here, you're in a shitload of trouble.
Yeah. And especially if you got a paddle, you know, if you're bored, you start like boards planing on the water again, and you got downhill in front of you, it's just like an easy paddle up. It's like paddling up. You've already got your speed on the easiest bump of all time.
Yeah. And I guess that's another advantage. I guess another thing with prone versus SUP, I guess for me, because I obviously have a bit of a background in SUP. If I did touch down here, I would just use my paddle to sort of, I'd actually change my angle either this way or this way. And I'd let this bump get out in front of me, and I'd actually allow this bump to get up under me. And I'd sort of paddle and pump, like just to get going. And then this bump would basically pick me up, and then I'd be able to go straight again, and I'd be up and going.
Yeah, quick question. I've got something I've been like unintentionally experimenting with lately, and I don't know why I started doing it, but I started like on the paddle up, and then also when I'm more on the paddle up, I'd start doing this paddle stroke where when you're like riding and you're paddling, you'll paddle every second pump. I started doing it on the paddle up, like just as I was just started foiling, but trying to not stall by doing like, you know, really fast tap, tap, tap pumps. And I've been, you know, trying to do that on the paddle up to try and stop stalling. And I don't know if it actually works or not, because sometimes it feels like if you just paddle more, you're just going to go quicker. But is that something you ever do?
So you're like paddling, and then you like pump, then paddle. So you're doing more pumping than you are paddling. Is that?
Yeah. So you're paddling every second pump, like as you would if you were like pumping back out in the surf on a SUP.
And is this when you're already up or when you're not quite up?
No, it's in that period where you're in between. Like when you've just got out of the water and you're probably below stall speed, but you're trying to work the foil up to speed. And sometimes I've had success with it, and it's like, well, that actually helped me get going. And then sometimes I like come off because it would have been better just to do more paddling. Yeah,
generally I think I know exactly what you're talking about. On a bigger foil, I'll probably do that more because it's basically I'm too afraid to stall on smaller foils. With like I know with the paddle stroke I'm getting, I guess the advantage of the paddle is when you're getting going. I probably paddle too much, but I prefer to paddle too much because every stroke I get a little bit more forward momentum, a little bit of forward momentum. Whereas if I'm pumping and not quite up to speed yet, there's every chance that you're going to stall out. Especially like I'm talking like when I'm paddling up to 899 or the lift 120 or the RS 1000. These are all foils that are pretty small, and I need to wait for the right bump. But if I'm using a bigger foil, like if on the RS 1150 or the RS 1300 or the lift 170, I can kind of like grind it up, and I just sort of get up. And like there'll be a point when I'm getting up to like I'm getting up to speed. I'm not quite like gliding yet downhill, but I'm like getting going. And I'll definitely do that 1, 2, paddle, 1, 2, paddle.
Yeah, and it's hard, and like I almost feel like you're better just to keep on paddling and then smash the board off, like bounce off the water, to build your speed up that way. But I don't know. It's well,
now that you're prone downwinding on your SUP at King of the Cut, you need to know these things.
Yeah, without a paddle, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's to me the advantage of the paddle is so much that you can it's like you can grab hold, like when you're skateboarding and you grab hold or at the snow and if there's a tree next to you and you sort of pull yourself past the tree.
Yeah.
So with a paddle, we're literally planting the paddle and we're pulling ourselves past that stationary point. Whereas
totally.
There's no way you can do that in the prone board unless you've got a mate with a paddle that hands it to you. I guess you know what I mean.
Yeah. Which is something that we need to try: is 2 people, 1 paddle. Whoever's behind gets the paddle. If you fall off, person behind throws the person in front of the paddle. It's got to be done.
I like that. I reckon you and Reedy should do that, or you and Marcus.
Man, we've spoken about it. We've just never done it.
Yeah.
It'd be cool though, because then you'd have your hands free.
So, but how would you get started then? So I guess
well, the person, but you have to start like someone 50 meters behind and then foil past them and chuck on the paddle.
Yeah, because once you're up, you don't. I only ever use the paddle when I'm up if I've made a really bad mistake.
Yeah, totally.
Or if I'm really pushing it to try to go up and over a bump and go faster. But or if I'm cutting really hard out to sea, which I've got a headland in the way. but like they're all situations that on a good downwind run you'd never have to do.
Totally. Yeah.
So yeah, okay. The other thing you spoke about, winging, and using free winging to assist your learning to downwind. And this is, obviously this is part of the course. Like one of the things in the downwind, my downwind follow course is, I call it downwind simulations. So I guess I sort of the course sort of has two parts to it. One is paddling up, getting your takeoff. And I guess it's mainly geared towards SUP because I view that as the ultimate chip in. You can get in anywhere on that, but I guess the downwind aspect, once you're up and going, you can simulate that by having a jet ski to tow you in, having a wing and sort of free winging it, paddling in prone on a wave and using that as a chip and then pumping out. But I guess one thing that we've been talking about a bit on Talkback Tuesday in the Coach Casey Club is free winging and the best way to free wing. And then I guess if the wind's behind me and the wing's out in front of me, it gives me the shits. Like I hate it. It's like this is always in the way, and you've got to swap your hands and change direction, and you're always cutting across the wind. And JB's done a fair bit of winging, and he basically says like you can avoid that by having it behind you, and you almost drag the middle strut in the water behind you, and you sort of you're going faster than the wing, and you're dragging it behind you. So
well. Yeah, I know what you mean, but to do, I've like had very few situations. I mean, I don't really wing anymore.
Yeah.
Because we have such good like paddle conditions here. But you have to to do that, to have it behind you, you have to have apparent wind from the front, which means that either you've got to have the wind from like beside you or something, or you've got to be going faster than the wind. Yeah. And normally when you're going faster than the wind's that crappy situation where the wing's just dangling in front of you. Like I see guys doing it in Hawaii and stuff, and I don't know, I'd like to see the conditions that they do it in, but it'd be epic if you could just hold it behind you. But I think most of the time I was always just passing it around from hand to hand, and sometimes even like holding it up with one hand just to keep it going. But it's such a good tool to learn with, because then you're not like, I guess, to learn to SUP downwind, you got to learn to paddle up, and then you got to learn to actually ride the bumps. And if you can use the wing to learn to ride the bumps, or it just takes away so much more of the pain.
So
it's
exactly
really the way to go. But look, having said that, like Reedy didn't do it, and he's killing it, and Donnie didn't do it, and he surf foiled a lot. So he could already pump and stuff, so he could figure it out pretty quick. But some people have done it and some haven't, and you can do it both ways. But for me, like, I don't regret it for a second.
But okay, interesting to say that you would you ever go back to that sort of free wing style of downwind?
Look, I don't think so. Like, if you could SUP, I'd never do it. Just because you've like got the freedom. I think you can go quicker and you haven't got this annoying thing to carry around. But maybe if the angle was, if it was like 45 degrees to shore.
And all the swells are wrapping in, because that's where I find like sometimes there's conditions here in Sydney where the wind's like east, but the swell is more north. So you're basically able to jump onto the swells and have the wing to your side and sort of surf straight in. And that's cool. Where I totally get it, why people would wing. But when the wind is south and the swell is south, then you've got this thing in the way, and you're literally like, it's like you're just blocking your view the whole time. It's
but look, at the same time, like, everyone likes different things, and like learning to paddle is really hard, and you've got to be super committed. So like winging, like downwind, if paddling didn't exist, I'd for sure be doing it every day, and I'd be frothing.
Totally,
because it's just like such an easier way of doing it. And like Crystal, my partner, who won the King of the Cut, she's only been doing it for, I don't know, less than a year. And like, we do runs together, and we're like side by side, and you're out there and you're doing it and you're off. And It's like, and you can just improve so much quicker as well. So like, no shame in it. And like, if it works for you, then sick.
The way I see it is like, I guess I want, obviously, my next question is what it's going to be, but I'm not going to get there yet. the reason I bring it up is because I see it as like a progression, right? So like, you're winging downwind and guys are free winging, and that's awesome. It's a great way to learn. Awesome entry point, and it's like epic because people are downwinding, and that's unreal. It's so awesome. And the reason
totally.
I talk about like being just like, it's annoying and it gets frustrating. That's because I've seen the other side to it, like the next step forward. It's like, I don't want to prone downwind because I can get up easier on a sup. I don't want to free wing downwind because when I downwind, I've got nothing to maneuver. I've just got a paddle in my hand, and I'm just going straight with the wind, and there's nothing that's flapping. The reason I bring it up is because I want to see more wingers transition into, I guess, downwinding without something in the way, and whether it be with a paddle or whether it be deflating it, And the deflate downwind, I've done a couple in the last. I did one. I went down to Giroa and I did one the other day. I was winging and the wind wasn't quite strong. Like the bumps weren't good enough to downwind yet, so I just sort of went for a wing. And then the wind picked up, and I'd organised with my wife to pick me up the other end. And I was either going to wing down or deflate downwind. And I sort of went down like, the bumps are good enough, so I just deflated it. And it was pretty cool to be able to go for like a wave wing session, and then just deflate and downwind. And the waves were small, so I was using the ART 999. Which obviously doesn't turn as well as I would like to normally for wave winging, because the waves are small. They're almost not breaking. And then for downwind, it was like, this is epic. So having the option there is awesome. But I always try to do a little bit of free winging before I deflate, and it's actually it's actually harder. It's harder to downwind with a wing because you've got to maneuver around it the whole time.
And especially if you can already like, how to ride the bumps and you don't need the wing for power. For sure.
It's like, I understand why people would not free wing much, because once you go, you'd almost get on your bump and you just ride that one bump for a little bit, and then once that bump's over, you just grab the wing and you start sailing. It's hard to free wing.
But look, the other advantage of like dinging downwind is like you can bloody just go everywhere. Like you can ride waves into the shore, and then you can just buzz like 500 meters back out, and you've got total freedom. And like there's definitely a place for it in the surf. Like when you can ding in waves, it's sick, but we just don't have waves, here that's easy to do it on.
It's but the deflate downwind, I want you to try it, mate. I want you to bust the wing out.
I think look, and I think people are hesitant for the downwind deflate, because like I actually think it's an advanced maneuver, like because you've got to be able to ride for like long distance without coming down. Because if there's a risk that, say you're going 5 or 10 Ks or something, like if you know that you're likely to fall off, like I wouldn't do it. I'd just hang on to it and like keep on free winging. So like I think if you're like really competent and you know that there's no weight and the conditions are good and all that, then I can see it might be good. But like it'd be hard, like someone who's like in the process of figuring it all out. Like I couldn't have done it. And then the pain of reinflating, unless you got like the gas canister things, which I've heard you talk about, which would be sick. But there's for us here, there's no real need to do it, but maybe during winter, when
that's what I was going to say. So when it's a bit more onshore, so that's when I mainly use it. When our winds are sort of more onshore, I just wing out to sea. Like you said, you can wing out. Like it's as good as getting dropped off by a boat, and you just wing 2, 3, 4, 5 kilometers out to sea. And it's got a bit of north or south in it when it's east. So then then I'll go downwind. I've got like a 10 to 12K run, and it's literally straight downwind, and you get all the swell with you and everything. And it's like, actually, I did one over in WA, must have been 2019, and I didn't actually deflate. This before I realized I could deflate while on the foil. I actually sat down, deflated, put in my backpack, and then paddled up. And I winged out to the Centaur marker out of Sorrento, and went all the way into where the doctor finishes and Hillary's. And it was the sickest run, because in Perth you're always cutting left. It's like you got to take the bump, you cut left. You saw it in the videos, you go in, you can turn left. Whereas I was so far out that I was literally just going straight downwind, like straight down the barrel. And there was no set, like I was actually turning right more than I was turning left. So it's like, for that alone, I'm like, if you're trying to go for the most fun run, like going straight downwind, then on those onshore days, epic. It's so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. I mean, like you could start 20 Ks up the coast and, go out 10 Ks and then have a 15K run
Exactly.
in. I just the pain of having to reinflate, I reckon I'd just rather carry a paddle with me and stick the wing in a backpack and paddle, know that I could just get up when I need it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure there's a place for it. Maybe one day.
Yeah.
Now you have to come over here and do some runs, and you can show us how it's done.
I'll show you guys how it's done. That's it. I'll have to do that. I want to come over. That's only a matter of time. But yeah, the only other place that I think it can be good, obviously you've got a crew now that you're downwinding with, so it's like, there's no point. But if you were starting from the beginning and you had no mates to go with and do a shuttle, then you could wing upwind. Like just to start with, I always say like just upwind like 1 or 2 kilometers. So like say start your watch and go upwind for 10 minutes, just sort of tacking upwind. And then once you get upwind, get obviously further off the shore and then sort of run into the coast. And it's probably only a 1 kilometer downwinder. But I guess my advice isn't to just do a 20K downwinder deflating, baby steps, do a 1K downwinder.
Yeah. And that's what I used to do when I was learning on the ding, is just go upwind. And then I used to do it kite foiling as well. Because, like go a few Ks downwind and then buzz back up and then go back down. And it's like, that's definitely the first like introduction, is just going out once you can hold your ground and go upwind, like just ride downwind for 20 meters, see what it feels like. And
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, mate, I'll have to convince you another time, maybe when I'm
in person, mate. Come over and we'll do some runs.
We'll do a demo. But I guess my point is, it's not that hard to deflate it. But I think a lot of people get afraid of that. It's like, honestly, just humor me. Next time you go for a wing, just try it before you come in. Like just be 500 meters off the beach. And just deflate and see how far you get. And I guarantee you'll find it easier than you think.
Yeah, I'm sure. But I've deflated my wing out, but when it went offshore once, and I was, I don't know, a few hundred meters out, I thought, I'll just pack it up and paddle it back in instead of dragging it back inflated. I ended up with water in the bladder of it.
How bad is it?
I've never had it in the bladder.
I've never had it in the bladder, but in the leading edge. It just sort of sits in the leading edge.
Yeah, I had it in the bladder of the strut, and once it's in there, it's like mission impossible to get it out.
Yeah. I haven't had that yet.
So do the valve. Like, I guess the thing is, you got to do the valve back up, otherwise you're stuffed.
Yeah, otherwise you're going to get a bit of water in there. But it's and then obviously if we can get this CO2 reinflate sorted, then there's no disadvantage. You come down, just reinflate, and you're good to go.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's still a little ways off. I guess the other thing that get wing manufacturers to think about is like a rigid one. And imagine if it was like we got a middle strut here and like sort of a brace either side, and and if you're just ready to deflate, you just unclick that like a tent and you just fold it down and you have it under your arm and you're good to go. And maybe that's something that is in the future for us.
For sure.
Any wing manufacturers out there listening?
And so look, something else like that would be like something that I think like downwind suppers need is like different paddles. Like I think, in my case, snapping paddles. And I think like 2 days after I broke my paddling, King of the Cut, Reedy snapped his in half, and then like Dan snapped a couple. Like I think we also need paddles that are more durable, like the extra bit of weight in wrapping a paddle in Egger and carbon or something to give it that durability would be awesome. Like that's another thing that would be really cool to see. I think tons of people would
you sent me this photo and maybe that's why, but
that was just to remind me that like I think it's worth, like, 'cause I don't think you hear people talk about paddles that much. And like I was using a like quite a soft paddle when I first started because it's like way easier on your shoulders. But I tried Marcus's paddle, which is one of these, the Sonova bamboo ones, I don't know, like a month ago. And I was just like mind blown by how easier it is to paddle up. You've just got like so much more power. And you can like feel it in your shoulders that it's definitely a bit tougher on the body. But if you're only paddling up here and there, like it doesn't matter at all. But like,
10-stroke bursts,
and it like opens up so many like bumps that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get up on. So I think like you probably want to learn on a soft paddle, and then as you get better, like a stiffer paddle is like awesome.
What sort of length is this like on you? Like, I guess for me, mine's eyebrow height, but I'm sinking my board probably that much. So maybe that's why it's eyebrow height.
Yeah.
But so yours is head high, is it?
I think it's about head high. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's pretty much the spot on point. Like if your board is level with the water, then it's just like you're standing on land, so to speak. So if your paddle's head high, that's perfect. Whereas I see a lot of people with too longer paddles, and the disadvantage of a longer paddle is you can't reload quick enough. So a shorter paddle you can reload quicker. So without hitting the water, basically, on the recovery phase. Yeah. So that's
like for anyone that's just learned and not paddling up as much as they were, like, man, try like borrow people's paddles, try stiffer paddles. It makes a huge difference. And I gave like Donnie tried this paddle the other day, and he was like, yeah, wow, this is definitely better. But if you could have like a stiff paddle like one of these that was like semi-indestructible as well, that would be epic.
Yeah, I guess the shaft on this is super strong and stiff.
Because you use the same one, right?
Yeah, but the blade, I've broken the blade before. Just obviously, we all know how we do that. You just hit the foil once or twice and it cracks. Julian, you know better than anyone. But the beauty of this paddle, I think, is actually the shaft. And I work with Sonova, and I know they don't put a lot of effort into they don't put a lot of R&D into their paddles. This is the same one they started with, but they just made a stiffer shaft, and it's the same blade. I also work with VMG blades, but they make paddles and fins, and our bikes too. But he has done a lot of work on the paddle, but the shaft isn't as stiff as this one. And I've said to him, like, you need to make a stiffer one, but obviously for most SUP paddlers, they don't want to paddle this stiff. So he's like, there's not much of a market. But I'm like, but there is for foiling.
And I think that's the point. Is like no one's making paddles for downwind SUP foiling, because you want something that's different to I'm not a normal SUPper, but I think it's something different to what you want for other like disciplines.
No, definitely. And that's like I use my bamboo shaft with this, I guess, more basic blade shape and stuff than my VMG, which I use for racing. But it's because this is so good for that 10-stroke burst to accelerate, whereas the VMG is good for like longer distance. But if I was using this bamboo paddle for a SUP race, my shoulders would burn out. But on a foil, we're taking 10 strokes, so it's kind of it's less of an issue, I guess.
For sure.
The other thing I guess I want to talk about back to boards is let me open that thing up again. So I guess this is the 6x24. It's like a custom aviator, and you can see Julian's board here, which is a little bit shorter and a fair bit narrower. This custom is obviously a fair bit smaller than the production. So production aviator, it was designed for like an all-round kind of board. We're currently doing something more based on this 6x24. We're going a little bit thicker because that seems to be the trend. We haven't gone too much narrower, just because for a production board, you kind of don't want to make it too hard. So like the Kalama,
but make them and someone will buy them. Like, there's so many people that are getting into it now that are looking for narrower boards. Like, if there was a narrower board that I could have got a custom board, but this would have taken too long with all the shipping and stuff at the moment. But like, there's so many people out there that will soon want like much narrower boards. So
there's a shipment coming to Sydney for the WSS boards here in Manly. And they're more sort of based off this. I guess it's more of a downwind aviator. I guess this was originally designed, or not this one, but the production aviators were designed for sort of SUP foiling, like SUP surf foiling and winging. And now winging's become a thing, and we've made a specific wing board. And now downwind foiling, which I'm so stoked, is becoming a thing. So we can justify making a range for it, because when we made this 6x24, this shape is probably 3 years old, maybe 3.5 years old. Like, we were using this King of the Cut in 2019 and maybe even 2018 as well. So that's kind of
Yeah, totally. And like I know Marcus has got some new boards coming that are narrow as well. And I think the boards that he's got coming are almost the exact same dimensions as mine, but different bottom shape. And like I think in terms of dimensions, like people will probably end up riding boards that are sort of 20 to 23 inches wide. I don't know where the lower limit is because I haven't tried anything narrower. But I think there's probably like so far to go in like finding that optimal bottom shape. Like I got no idea what it is. And like even you look at the Kalama boards and like something, and like I'd be lying if I said I didn't get a bit of inspiration from his designs when I made mine. But you know, like even that tail that goes like the chine runs in right down to the tail, you know, like, and I was talking about this the other day, like, you know, maybe that's effectively giving you a waterline length on your board that's 4 inches longer. So like maybe on my board, if that line went all the way to the back, it'd be like riding a board that was 4 inches bigger, and it'd be heaps easier to paddle up. And you know, like you look at different boards and the rockers are so different, and you know, you've got different concaves or V's or flat or whatever. Like my board's almost flat, like really flat with really little rocker, and then a bit of V and rocker in the nose. But you know, like it's made in a shed by someone who'd never made a board before. So it's like, you know, it'd be so interesting to see where all the board designs end up.
Oh, it's tip of the iceberg, isn't it? Because like, like I guess the Downwind subfoiling is it's new. It's pretty new. And the design stuff, like really, you know, Marcus has designed something specific. Ben Tarju, I guess Marcus with the Aviator, Ben Tarju with the one egg, and a mate of mine's, Ben Tarju. He's got one. A mate of mine, Sean Woolno's got one, and he's loving it.
I've paddled Ben's like when he was in Perth for a week. I had a go on it. It's a good board. Like
it's got more rocker, right? Than the.
I don't know. I can't remember, but it does it, And like if you look at the, like I've seen a Kalama board and put like my, you know, and looked at the rocker on it, and it starts to rise like almost at the end of the box. The rocker starts there. Like I don't know if you've seen one, but it's crazy. Like there's so much rocker in it. Like it's unbelievable. And like the nose is super thin. Like I haven't tried one, but there's just so much difference in boards. And you know, like I guess maybe the idea of that is that it fits into the wave, you know, because the waves curves or fits into there. But then, you know, like you catch a bump when you're like up on the top of a big one, and there's a lump up there, and then, you know, maybe you want a flatter board for that scenario. So it's who knows.
And I guess the Aviator is definitely on the flatter side of things too, because I know Ben's always saying to Marcus, give your board a bit more rocker, because whenever we swap, I've used Ben's board, and like we swapped over, and I got up first go on his setup, and he struggled a bit more on my setup, which my board was a bit lower in volume, and he's had more volume, which obviously gives it a bit more, you know, ease of use. But the rocker, he was like almost nosediving a lot when he was paddling up, whereas I was not having to worry so much about pitch.
Yeah, and I find that with my board, I didn't put anywhere near enough rocker in it. So when I'm like paddling on the surface, just waiting for a bump, I have to stand, I don't know, an inch or two further back than where I end up when I'm going full power, because otherwise it will nosedive. So I have to stand further back, and then as I'm like powering up, my feet then shuffle forwards into that right spot, and then once I'm going, I then shuffle back again. So, you know, like that tells me that I like certainly what I've got needs more rocker, because you can't just stand where you want to be and just, you know, give it everything. You have to be a bit careful about it. And then, you know, like the different bottom shapes, like, or my board like skids, like doesn't track as well. And like I know that Aviators track awesome with that bottom shape. But it's like, you know, but then the more you use something, you get used to it, and you stop skidding around, and you can use the I don't know, who knows what's right, but it's so cool to try different stuff.
And it's at the moment we're at a time where like we'll have a look at where we've come from. Like I was 5 years ago, I was using a 7.2 by 24.5, and it was square, super square. Like
I think I know the ones,
and it pulled in a little towards the tail, but that was still probably the easiest board I ever paddled up on, just I think because of the length, and that's what I keep saying there. I keep getting in, having chats with Matt Costa, and he's like so stoked on his 5.7, and he said that his 5.7 52 foil toe board is more stable and easier to paddle than the Kalama, the 6.3 Kalama, and he's like, oh, it's way better because of this, and this. And I'm like, yeah, but the Kalama will probably get up early just because of that extra waterline and being narrower. So stability, being a stable board isn't always a good thing. Like a stable isn't easy to get going.
No.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you need it to be stable enough so that you can balance and give it full power. And like, honestly, I fall off, like, you know, going full power, and I'll skid off to the side, or my foot will slip in because the board's so much narrower. There's, you know, and there's not much edge on it, you know, like it's flat bottom, it, you know, roll over and I'll come off. But then other times it works great. But you know, and like Donnie, one of my mates here, he's got a 6.10 by, I think it's maybe 27.5 wide. So it's a huge board, but it's like epic for him to, like, it's been such a good board to learn on. He's about to get a new aviator, which I think is going to be awesome for him. But that long board, like, he gets it going so easy. And he's riding like a Takuma 12.10. But just that length of it, I think, like, the length must just have, like, makes such a difference. And it makes me wonder, you know, like, if I was on a board that was 6.2 instead of 6.0, like, how much easier would it be to paddle up? And you probably wouldn't really notice it.
Nah, 2 inches, riding. like you know, especially if there's a bit of rocker in the board, and like, you know, how, like, you're up and flying, like, it's not like you're on these super steep, like on a wave surfing. I think you probably notice it. But like, I've winged on this board. I winged out to a spot, and then the wind came up, and I winged out thinking I was just going to do a deflate downwinder, but the waves were epic. So I just surfed the waves for like an hour, and then I went downwind after. And like, I didn't like for sure the 5.0 by, what is it, 24.5 is probably nicer to wing on, but like, it was so marginal. I was on a 6.0 by 24 versus 5 by 24.5. And obviously thickness is a bit different, but like, you'd think like that's a big difference. It's a foot. But I felt like I was surfing the wave kind of the same as what I was on the 5-footer as I was the 6-footer. A bit more nose out in front, but like, it's
and then like, especially when you're downwinding, you know, like, you're not, like, sometimes it feels like you're turning sharp. But then, like, you see yourself, like, I never get to see myself in those like videos that Chris took me the other day. It's awesome because you can see what you actually look like. Like, you know, often it, like, and you know what's happening in your head. That you're like, oh man, I'm doing these cutbacks at like 1,000,000 miles an hour, but you're not. Like, it's nothing like surf foiling. So your board doesn't need to.
You don't need the length, basically. You don't need the shorter length, because it's basically, I basically classify downwinding as it's kind of like longboarding, whereas in the wave it's surf foiling is more like shortboarding, and like your board should match that, I guess is my point. And it's so cool. There's so much. Well, tip of the iceberg, so much to learn, and we're gonna see everything progress more and more, and I can't wait to see the next sort of round of downwind SUP foil boards sort of evolve. And even in saying that, downwind prone foil boards, I think that is a thing, because not everyone wants to learn to SUP, not everyone wants to learn to wing, and there's the hardcore surfers that want to learn to do it, and they don't want to learn to wing, they don't want to learn to SUP, and go for it. Get your hand paddles on, and away you go. Give it a go.
And I think that those, you know, people will end up on SUPs, because it's like the days when it's like, you know, and I think, and this is what I learned over winter is, you know, like, you can downwind in like less than 10 knots. Like, it's not that hard. Like, you have to work a little bit more, and you might use a bigger foil, but like, you can totally do it. But like, prone paddling in to the wind bumps in 10 knots, like, forget about it, I reckon. So there's probably a time and a place for everything, but
Well, let's start wrapping it up. It's been a good chat, mate. Thanks for coming on.
Mate, it's been awesome.
I always try to get people to leave with, I guess, 3 tips that they learned from downwinding, I guess, or like in their journey to downwind. What were the best 3 tips you were given?
The best 3 tips I was given, probably the tips that, like, the things that had the biggest impact on me was, like what I was saying before, like, you know, learn how to, you know, really understand which bumps you can and you can't catch, you know, and learn to catch a bump as opposed to having a bump catch you. like that was super valuable. You know, like don't look behind you is a good one. But I think like there are things that helped me, and learning proper paddle technique, like is massive. Like that's everything. But I think, you know, like in general, like you just got to put in the time. And I'm still learning, you know, like you've got to, like I've got so far to go, you know, like, and you just got to put in the time. And you almost, if you want to improve quickly, you almost got to train, you know, like do the winter stuff, do the crappy conditions, try smaller foils to expose all your weaknesses, all that stuff. And another really good tip, and this is Reedy's one, is, man, like also all of us have Apple Watches. And that's like one of the best tools for learning, because people can come with you that aren't going to, you know, do the same run. If someone has a like nightmare and they come off they just get halfway and they're spent and they can't make it. Like it just makes the logistics of everything so much easier.
Yeah, you can pick them up on the way back instead of waiting for them to come in.
Yeah, totally. Or it's like, hey, I'm 5Ks off. I'm having a bit of a struggle. What's the weed like for the last 5K? Yeah. Should I just come in, or does it get better? Or, you know, like, and it just, you know, the number of times it would have been driving around looking for people, and, you know, without Apple Watches, and plus it's like a safety thing. You can, if something happened, you can call someone. So that's, I reckon that's a really good tool to have.
Yeah, I always have my phone in a waterproof case. I don't have an Apple Watch. I got a Garmin that I use, but phone in a waterproof case kind of covers that. And the marine rescue, or marine here in New South Wales, it's for the marine rescue app. And if I'm doing longer ones, and I know there's lots of people on headlands looking out. I'll log into that, because it just prevents a helicopter coming over and scanning to see if you need help.
All the boys have had the helicopters and the rescue boats and the
all the above.
You know, all of the above. I think probably the biggest thing for me is like find people around you that you can like learn from and go with, and like that changed everything for me. So that's just, you know, like find your people that are doing the same thing in the same place and connect and make it happen.
Yeah, and if you got no mates around you, just join the Coach Casey Club.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's
but they're definitely like what I try to do on my online stuff is I actually try to pair people up. Like you guys look like you're in the same level, and I've got two guys here in Sydney, Sean and Anthony, and they're always like they're like the dynamic duo. Whenever one's going out, the other one's there, and they're filming each other, and they're just frothing off each other, bouncing off each other, and it's epic.
Man, like when it's pouring with rain and it's like 10 knots onshore, like, man, you're probably not going to go out by yourself. But if you got someone else to go with, like, you'll do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's important to have a downwind buddy, you know, to sort of froth out with and get everything going. So, yeah. But yeah, once again, Julian, thanks for coming
thanks
on
so much, mate.
And sharing all your tips and knowledge and learning curve. So, yeah.
Mate, hopefully we can catch up for a glide one day. It'd be awesome.
It'll happen. It'll happen. It's just a matter of when, not if.
Yeah, awesome. All right, mate. Thanks so much. I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah. Bye.